Welcome to today's webinar. County Health Rankings and Roadmaps is a program of the University of Wisconsin Population Health Institute. This webinar is brought to you thanks to the contributions of colleagues and partners in Wisconsin and across the nation, with support from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It is produced in collaboration with Healthy Places by Design, an organization that advances community-led action and proven strategies to ensure health and well-being for all. The University of Wisconsin-Madison occupies ancestral Ho-Chunk land, a place their nation has called Daejeop since time immemorial. Today, UW-Madison respects the inherent sovereignty of the Ho-Chunk Nation, along with the 11 other First Nations of Wisconsin. This webinar will be recorded. All speakers' views are their own. Guest bios and slides from today's webinar are available on our resource page. We will share a link to the resource page when the webinar begins. Stay up to date on all things CHR&R. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you haven't already, sign up for our newsletter by scanning this QR code with your phone's camera. It's the best way to find out about upcoming webinars, our podcast, and our latest tools and resources. For your convenience, the QR code will also continue to be displayed for the remainder of this short video. Your facilitators today include our host, Erica Burrows-Girardi, with support from CHR&R Communications Specialist Colleen Wick and the Collaborative Learning Director from Healthy Places by Design, Joanne Lee.
Welcome to previewing the 2025 annual data release. Hello, my name is Erica Burrows-Girardi, and I am super excited to be able to share exciting new ways for you to explore county data and new tools to support you in your community. The purpose of our webinars is to share successes, lessons learned, relevant resources, and links. We encourage you to be open to listening from multiple perspectives as we learn together. CHR and our webinars reflect the values that we hold as part of the University of Wisconsin Population Health Institute. Values of collaboration, integrity, excellence, innovation, inclusion, and courage. These are values that we aim to model during the webinar, and we hope that you will too. With that, I'd like to introduce you to the team that's going to aid in your learning experience. And let's start with Joanne Lee with Healthy Places by Design. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Erica. I'm so glad to be here for this exciting webinar today. And I'm here to tell everyone in the audience about two ways that they can engage with us during today's webinar. The first way is if you have questions for the panelists, you can enter them into the question box, and we'll answer as many questions as we can during today's live webinar. You can also engage with other participants in the group chat. Use the group chat to introduce yourselves, comment on learnings, or share your knowledge and experience about today's topic. Be sure when you do chat out to set the chat to everyone. Now I am glad to introduce you to another team member, Soraya.
Oh, thanks, Joanne. Hello, everybody, and I will meet you in the chat. Make note of our new group agreements for more productive interaction. And now I would like to introduce you to our technologist for today, James.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to our webinar. I really love this topic. I love this time of year. And as your technologist today, please send me a message in the Q&A pod, because then I can triage that and help you out if at all possible. I want you to have a great experience with our webinar. And Erica, I'm so excited. I'm going to hand it right back to you.
Thank you, James.
All
And I
right.
agree, this is the most wonderful time of the year. In fact, I always tell that to my colleagues, but I am going to save you all from having to listen to me sing the song because I do sing it to them. So, but anyway, I'm always mindful of the fact that we have people new to county health rankings and roadmaps, or CHR&R, like you're going to hear us call it, in every webinar. So I want to start by introducing ourselves. At CHR&R, we believe in a future where everyone has opportunity to be healthy and to thrive. There are many factors impacting how long and how well we live, from opportunities that we have, like to access fresh foods, to safe places to play, to opportunities to participate in decision making processes. The data resources in our annual release highlight some stark differences in health that stem from historical and current policies and practices. And they lift up strategies and solutions that communities can use to take action. So that's what we're going to learn about today. And here to discuss what's new for 2025 are three of my colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Michael Stevenson, Jess Hoffelder, and Naya Patel. Hey guys.
Hey, Erica, thanks for having us today. I'm excited to be in community with this group.
Hi, Erica. Happy to be here.
Hi, Erica. Happy to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you all join me today, and you can check out our resource page that Soraya is going to chat out one more time to learn more about our guests by reading their bios. Look for the resource guide that will accompany this webinar. We're going to send it to you by the end of the week. And that brings me to the annual data release. So this year, we're exploring the structural barriers to health and equity and introducing you to a new model of health. So, Michael, please join me because I want to start with you. Why are we debuting a new model of health?
Yeah, well, thanks again, Erica. To answer that question, I think it's really important that we look back to where we've been. So what you're seeing on this slide is the county health rankings model that was last updated in 2014. This model obviously looks familiar, probably to folks on this webinar today. And it made really important and significant contributions in shaping a shared understanding that place matters to your health. So where you live, learn, work, and play influences how long and how well you live. This model also played a really important role in deepening our understanding that health is more than healthcare. So one thing about county health rankings and roadmaps that I love is that we're always learning, and we're making sure that folks on our webinars and folks that use our resources, people like you and the communities that you serve have the best access to the best available evidence, data, and resources. So over the past decade, the evidence has continued to evolve.
Yeah.
So one of our motivations in really updating and re-examining this model was to join momentum around expanding the conversation and action on the structural drivers and power dynamics that influence the conditions where people live, learn, work, and play. So you'll see on this slide a definition of the structural determinants of health. For folks that have been on this webinar series, this definition will look familiar. This is a definition that was offered by our colleagues at the Population Health Institute. So the structural determinants of health are the written and unwritten rules that create, maintain, or eliminate patterns of advantage between socially constructed groups. What's important to note is that people in groups with more power work to maintain their advantage by reinforcing or modifying these rules. So really simply put, if the social determinants of health are the conditions where we live, learn, work, and play, the structural determinants of health are the rules that are set and held by people who wield power that create those conditions. So we realize that this is an opportunity to really call people in to explore how those community conditions came to be and who can influence them. And this is important to us so we can diagnose core social problems and account for historical harms and identify evidence-informed solutions that address those historical harms so we can rewrite the rules and how they are applied.
And with that, we created a new model. So, are you ready, y'all, to see our new model? Here it is. So, let's take a look at it, Michael, in a little bit more depth. Can you walk us through the new model?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do so, I just want to say something about the process that really informed the product that folks are seeing on their screen today. So this model builds on over 2 decades of scholarship and practice. Over the past few years in particular, we have been deep into the literature, talking and listening with scholars and experts and practitioners to inform how to evolve the model of health. And I'll note that many folks that are on this webinar today likely provided feedback at one time or another. So let's walk through it piece by piece. And I'll start at the very top. So what you're seeing in green here is population health and well-being. So in our society, health is often understood to be an individual experience. But the new model specifies our focus on population health, or the distribution of health within a community and the connectedness to our well-being. We've also introduced the concept of well-being to our model, that is including both quality of life and the ability of people and communities to contribute to the world. And this was added to reflect the evolving evidence base of what contributes to population health. If we keep moving down the model, the section in blue will likely look quite familiar. So you'll see the community conditions, and these are the places where we live, learn, work, and play. So these conditions include our climate, they include access to safe and affordable housing, they include our ability to earn a living wage. So in blue here, the community conditions, well, these are often referred to as the social determinants of health. If we keep moving down the model, you'll see that we've introduced societal rules, which are those written and unwritten rules and how they are applied that ultimately shape community conditions. So written rules can be formalized and documented in things like laws and policies and regulations and budgets. Unwritten rules are made up of things like worldviews and culture and norms. So by naming these rules and where power is held, the model can help local leaders, people that are working towards health, and organizers make positive changes. In purple, you're going to see that the model also names power. And by power, we mean the ability to achieve a purpose and to affect change. So power is what is used to create and maintain those societal rules. So people can build power when they organize and act together to set agendas, to shift public discourse, to influence who makes decisions, and to cultivate relationships with decision makers. So societal rules and how those are created and maintained through power are referred to as the structural determinants of health.
Yeah, and Michael, all of our colleagues here at CHR&R really worked hard to bring this model together, and I can honestly tell you, like for a year, almost a year and a half, we have been iterating and iterating. How do we find a way to display these structural determinants of health? And we got it. So I'm really excited about the model and about the changes. And can you share how this would look like in practice? Like, give us an example of how this works.
Yeah, so as I was speaking and kind of talking through the model, there were likely concepts that felt new, but I think what's really important to remember is that this work is actually very familiar. And one of the ways that I think we can show how this is familiar is by looking at tobacco as an example. And as folks know, commercial tobacco use is a core kind of area within public health work. And commercial tobacco policy has long been influenced by for-profit tobacco manufacturers, even when we knew that tobacco was detrimental to our health. So let me give a few examples. So for decades, powerful tobacco companies lobbied against local governments from enacting life-saving laws. They invested in advertisements that associated tobacco with luxury and status, like the image that you're seeing on the slide deck here. And they hid evidence of the harmful effects. Big Tobacco even went as far as funding public health initiatives, research, and education. So they really worked, they used their power to shape the conditions through the use of rules where we live, learn, work, and play. However, over time, public health leaders, nonprofits, and community members mobilized and took action. They used their power, and they used their power to advocate, which helped increase tobacco taxes, helped pass indoor smoke-free air laws, and place restrictions on advertising and marketing. So as a result of the power that was built and nurtured through nonprofits and public health leaders, we've seen dramatic decreases in tobacco use in the US. So this new model really calls on us to more closely examine how those conditions came to be. And it really reaffirms that health equity is possible when we address the root causes of health inequities and when we start to shift power.
Mhm. Wonderful example. So, what can people expect with these new changes?
So our model is really a backbone of our work at County Health Rankings and Roadmaps. So this means that the introduction of a new model, there are ripple effects to our other assets. And we'll be talking about some of those changes later on this webinar. A couple things that I'll highlight. The first is that all measures have been remapped to this new model. So when folks visit our website with this year's annual data release, measures will be organized and associated with the new model of health. Something else that has changed is the way that some of our summary measures are calculated. So the measures and the weights that are used to calculate the community conditions summary measure specifically have changed. So previously this was called the health factor groups, and they are not comparable to this year's community condition groups. One thing that I'll note is that we will continue to offer summary measures for population health and well-being and community conditions, but at this time, there will not be a summary measure around societal rules and power. The last implication that I want to name before we pass the mic to other colleagues is that all of our strategies, all of the evidence-informed strategies and what works for health have also been remapped to this model. So folks can find solutions, evidence-informed solutions to inform action across the model, and they'll be able to sort and filter strategies by those structural determinants of health.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, thank you, Michael, for introducing us to the probably the largest change that we've had in 2025. So thank you so much. And now I know you all have questions because you want to ask questions about what these implications are all about. I just want to remind you to place your questions in the Q&A pod. Joanne is there. Actually, we have a couple of other colleagues there as well from CHRNR that are all working to triage your questions. So that way, when we go into our Q&A period, we can lift them. We will definitely answer as many questions as we can, but go ahead and put them into the Q&A pod as well. So, Jess, what new data and data tools do you have to share with our audience today?
Well, we are introducing 6 new measures this year, and we're updating our tools that help counties easily see meaningful similarities and differences in health experiences.
6 new measures. They say that's what gets me excited. So, but anyway, can we preview them?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with our new measure of functional disabilities. This measure represents people with disabilities that impact functions like hearing, seeing, concentrating, physical movement, or independent living. There are many other types of disabilities as well that are not captured in this measure. This measure can help communities monitor where ableism, or actions or attitudes that devalue people with disabilities, may create barriers to resources like education, housing, and feelings of safety and welcome. We can organize a world where everyone thrives and can contribute to our collective well-being. And you will find the disability measure in the demographics section of your health snapshot.
Okay.
So next is feelings of loneliness, which is a measure of population health and well-being and expands our understanding of what health is beyond physical wellness to include life satisfaction and mental and emotional well-being.
I'm excited about that. All of them. They're just so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so another one is lack of social and emotional support, which measures the community conditions that may lead to someone feeling lonely or unwell. Relationships that provide social and emotional support are critical to thriving. This measure can be found in the safety and social support focus area of our model. Libraries are an important civic and community resource that provide access to information and learning and foster belonging and community participation. Our new measure of library access can help communities understand how well local public libraries are filling the needs of people living in library service areas. Access to libraries is also being added to our new model as a select measure, meaning it contributes to our calculation of the community conditions health groups, that summary score that Michael mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
So moving on to our new measure of access to parks, you'll find this measure in the air, water, and land focus area of our model. Parks support physical and mental health and create space to exercise, gather in community, and enjoy nature.
And I'm really excited about this one as a resident of Florida. So glad that we now have a measure around climate events. So tell us about this one.
Yeah, so our well-being is strongly connected to the health of the planet and the other living beings who share it with us. A measure we're really excited to introduce is our measure of adverse climate events. Current community conditions exist within the context of harms that have happened in a place. Climate events like intense storms, droughts, floods, and extreme heat are happening more frequently, and recovery from events like these is a healing process for a community that takes time. The occurrence of these events should be visible in the conversation about conditions for health and well-being in a community. And you can find this new measure in the climate focus area of our model.
So good. Thank you. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so this measure considers 5 years of data from 2019 to 2023, and it captures which counties have experienced extreme heat and moderate or greater drought events and disaster declarations for other climate events. This map that's on your slide shows the number of categories of adverse climate events that counties have experienced. Some counties have experienced multiple and layered adverse climate events, with some regions of our country experiencing all three within the 5 year period. So extreme heat events, drought events, and climate or weather events that resulted in disaster declaration. And as I mentioned earlier, this measure sits within the new climate focus area, which is a new addition to the community conditions portion of the model.
And I see my county, we're yellow, so two. So the way I read that is I've had two major weather events in the last 5 years.
So you've experienced two of the categories.
Two of the categories.
Yeah, so
Okay.
and the three categories are extreme heat, the moderate or greater drought, and disaster declarations.
Got it. I'm so excited that we have that this year. So can you summarize? I know we have a lot with the measures.
Yeah, so to summarize, these are the 6 new measures that we just showed you. And as I previously mentioned, access to libraries is a new select measure. There are other measures that have been made select measures this year, and some select measures have been retired. And again, because of this and other changes to the model of population health, the health groups, especially the community conditions health groups, should not be compared to last year.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know that. These measures are a lot to chew on, and I'm sure that folks in the audience are eager to make sense of the data for their counties. Now, as you said, there's some new tools to help us to do just that. So can you kind of review the tools with us?
Absolutely. So this is a map of population health and well-being for Michigan counties, and this image can be found on the Michigan State Health Snapshot. As a reminder, last year we introduced 10 health groups that group together similar counties nationally based on health status. So shown here on the Michigan State map, the health groups allow us to see how a county's health is meaningfully similar to the health of neighboring counties. And it shows us where there may be differences in the health of counties within the state. The color of each county on this map represents the health group. These data-informed groupings draw on health information for all U.S. counties. And this map shows us that relative to the nation, most Michigan counties are pretty healthy.
And how can I view what health group that my county is in?
So you can visit your county snapshot and find this visual of health groups, which highlights where your county is in comparison with the health groups for all counties in your state and with state and national averages. The colors of the dots show or represent the data-informed groups of counties. Counties with similar health will be grouped in the same shade of yellow or green, and the dots along the top show us the distribution of population health and well-beings among counties in the state, while the gray line below shows how counties in the state fare on a national continuum of health. These health groups replaced the rank that we assigned to counties prior to 2024. So with this view, we get a better sense of the relative position of counties on the continuum of health. Under a ranking method, there may have been a huge difference between a county ranked number 1 and number 2 in a state, but that difference wouldn't be visible. This method more accurately reflects the similarities and differences across counties and allows for more nuance in the assessment of a county's health. It also allows us to visualize these similarities and differences more easily.
Yeah, this new view definitely opens up new options for us, just like because with the rankings that confined us to comparisons within a single state, the health groups demonstrate a national continuum of health. Like I can look at my county and see counties that have the same shape. They
Mhm.
might have similar challenges, maybe similar opportunities.
Yeah, that's very true. So we recognize that the health does not stop at state lines. So new this year, from the map on state snapshot pages, you can now zoom out to easily explore patterns in health groups across several states and find peer counties anywhere in the country.
And with those peer counties, we can better see ways to work together and to share resources. So, yeah, this approach really aligns with our vision that all people and places have what they need to thrive. That's so important to us. So, what other tools do we have to make those meaningful comparisons between counties?
Yeah, so we also have our Compare Counties tool, which has an exciting update since our last release. In addition to comparing one county to another or to the state or national value, you can now compare to an average of counties with similar rurality. So the tool can be used to display the average value of all counties with a similar population size and adjacency to metropolitan or metro areas. This makes the Compare Counties tool a lot more powerful for rural counties where experiences may be different than the national or state averages, which can be heavily influenced by large cities and high population density areas.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to make the data more meaningful and useful for folks in rural areas. Thank you so much, Jess. Stick around because I know you're gonna have lots of questions. And now I want to invite Naya to join me. Naya's with What Works for Health. And Naya, can you start by reminding us what folks can find in What Works for Health?
Yeah, sure thing, Erica. So, What Works for Health helps you answer the question, how can we take action to improve health? In our What Works for Health database, we've included more than 400 evidence informed strategies, which you can find at countyhealthrankings.org/whatworks. So, each of our 400 strategies offers a summary of the research and provides examples of how it's being used. And many of the strategies also include our analysis of that strategy's potential impact on equity.
And what's new in What Works for Health for this year's release?
Yeah, so we are always working on new strategies to add to our database. A new one that we added this March is community organizing in public health. This strategy highlights a long-standing and important role for public health to collaborate with and learn from other sectors. Community organizing advances priorities by developing leadership, campaigning, and building power to influence decisions, agendas, and worldviews. This strategy is recommended by experts to increase public health effectiveness, community power, and social connectedness. The evidence also indicates that this strategy has the potential to decrease disparities, and that's based on expert opinions. So, this strategy will be featured on our new structural determinants of health curated list, which will be available with our new data release. We've put together the curated list to include strategies that address the structural determinants of health. These solutions focus on building power and changing the rules to improve the conditions that shape health. The effectiveness of these strategies depends on how people gain agency and influence in decisions that affect their lives. And I want to emphasize that the strategies included in this list are only some of the many solutions people can work towards to improve the structural determinants of health and create sustainable change.
Yeah, I love our curated list because they have so much good information. It includes a range of strategies and solutions around what works for health. So if you haven't tried one of the curated lists, make sure that you do that. And Naya, I understand that we are introducing a pretty new cool tool, and it's an AI feature. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we're really excited about this one. So We'll be launching EVI, what we like to call our new What Works for Health personal guide. So this tool will be available with our data release. So EVI is a tool powered by AI that can help our users find relevant, helpful information from What Works for Health. So EVI's ultimate goal is to help users navigate our database easily. You can ask EVI questions about specific strategies or areas of interest using the chat feature, or you can start with a question from the popular questions menu, which you can see on your screen right now. EVI will generate answers based on the strategies in our database or share links to relevant strategies and resources that are available through What Works for Health. And it's really important to note that EVI is only trained on What Works for Health strategies. So the responses you'll be getting from EVI will only reflect evidence that's been summarized in the What Works for Health database.
So cool. Thank you so much, Naya, for sharing what we can look forward to with What Works for Health. So, hey, we have given you so much information. We have a new model that you can use. We have 6 new measures and new data tools, and we have new What Works for Health strategies, and of course, EVI. But we know that every community is different. So please reach out to us if you have specific questions about any of the data or tools and how to apply them, how to apply the strategies to your community. You can always just go to our website and simply scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, and you can use the contact us link. But I'm doing better than that because I've asked Soraya to go ahead and go ahead and chat that link right now. So if you have questions in the Q&A pod, that's fine. But if you know that there's something very specific that you want to address about your particular county or community, use that contact us button to reach out to us. 2 years ago, CHR debuted our podcast in solidarity. And since then, we've been privileged to interview dozens of our county's brightest minds and biggest thinkers. If you have not listened to In Solidarity, be sure to join the conversation today. We're currently featuring conversations about the new model, of course, changes happening within the public health ecosystem, and conversations around community organizing. And as you heard from Naya, organizing is key to building power to influence decisions, agendas, and worldviews. So just make sure that you visit In Solidarity. A link to the podcast will be on your resource guide. And one more resource that I want to share before I tell you about the annual data release date. One way to shift power, and we've been talking about power a lot, is through narrative change. So, narrative change is a process and an organizing tool that shifts how we understand the world, how the world works, and our role in it. CHR&R and Human Impact Partners co-lead Narratives for Health, which fosters a network of local, state, and national partners across the country to apply narratives to their work. Their goal is to shift work away from dominant narratives that have impeded progress, narratives that you have heard before, that gave rise to sayings like pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and beliefs like government is inherently bad for our progress. Instead, Narratives for Health offers training, tools, and support for primarily public health practitioners and their allies to deploy more inclusive ideas and worldviews like my well being affects your well being and narratives that support health and racial justice. So be sure to visit our website to learn more. We have newly released resources as well, including the Narratives for Health in Action resource and related two-pagers. I often hear from communities that they're just not sure how to implement narrative. Well, the In Action resource highlights practical ways to embed narrative into your work, how to deploy narratives in communities, and the resource summarizes over 60 examples shared by people and organizations connected to Narratives for Health. So these are examples that you can see how other people across the country are deploying narrative in communities. So be sure to check out that resource, and we will have a link for Narratives to Health on the resource guide as well. Now, I am going to end the suspense Mark your calendars for March 19th, folks. That will be our 2025 annual data release. That's when we'll bring you our reports and debut the interactive model, the new measures you heard Jess talk about, and the new strategies that you heard Naya talk about. So be sure to join us next week on March 19th when we'll be celebrating our annual release. Michael, I do want to bring you back though to share an important announcement about the future of our work at CHRNR.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. I want to start by just underscoring how excited we are about the new model, the new measures, the strategies, and the resources that we're releasing next week. These have been changes that we've been working towards for years, and we feel incredibly proud to share them with you all. And I'm incredibly proud of our team and what they've accomplished. So for 15 years, County Health Rankings and Roadmaps has provided data, evidence, and tools for communities so that you can better understand your health and how to take action to improve health and equity. You all have invited us into your work, and this has been a responsibility that we have honored and always taken very seriously. But I need to share some difficult news. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, our primary funder, decided to end funding for county health rankings and roadmaps by December of 2026. So while our funding is ending, we know the work is not done. So like you, our work is rooted in a long-term vision where all people and places have what they need to thrive. As you all know, we have not realized that vision yet. So there's still a lot that we don't know about the future of our work in particular, but we are providing news about our funding so that you all, the 1,000 people that have joined us live on this webinar today, the folks that are in the YouTube overflow room, and the more than 700,000 people who use and visit our website each year, have time to identify alternative ways to continue the important work that improves health and equity. Why we're also sharing this news today is that the 2025 data release will likely be our last as county health rankings and roadmaps. So as we look to the future, we are interested in documenting how you use our resources in your work. So sharing your stories and experience will help us explore alternative funding and continue to evolve aspects of our work.
Yeah, thank you. That was hard news to share, Michael, and I appreciate you sharing it. And I really do want to turn on my video, but it's freezing on me for some reason. There it goes. But, as Michael said, we are still in the early stages of exploring what's next for us here at CHRNR. So, like documenting the use of how you've used our resources and the potential impact that of not having CHRNR resources, what that impact will do for your work and have on your work will actually inform us about what's next. So Soraya is putting a survey in the chat for you to share your experiences with us. If you would, please take 5 minutes to complete the survey. You don't have to do it now because we do have a little bit more information to share with you. Um, but I want to encourage you to also share the survey with other people. You all know other folks that have used CHRNR resources, and we would appreciate it if you would share that survey because we want to hear from as many folks as possible. So thank you so much for helping us out with that. But we are not done yet. So over the next 2 months, I want you to know that we're going to be exploring how you can apply the new categories in the model to your work. So next month, we're going to delve into power. So as Michael said earlier, power is the ability to achieve a purpose and to affect change. The question is, how do we build strategy around power? Well, Maria Pobet and Angela Acker will be here to join us and answer that question. So be sure to visit our website and register for that webinar. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joanne so we can see what questions have been bubbling up.
Thanks, Erica, and thanks to your team. You never disappoint every March. Very exciting. Some hard news this time, but you're always so wonderful. Your team is about keeping people informed and giving us the latest data and information tools that we need. So lots of questions have come through, and I have to give a shout out to Elizabeth Blomberg and Molly Burdine, who have been helping to answer a bulk of the questions. So folks, make sure if you post a question in the Q&A box, you go back there because an answer might be there. But we are going to try to answer some questions live, as many as we can. And Michael, I'd love to start with you. People are loving the model. You didn't have a chance to peek in the chat, but lots of love for the new model, making sense. So the first question, people are making the connection between health equity and the new model and how it's structured. Are there any, how is this new model structured around health equity? And are there any specific indicators for the new power component of the model? Any plans to identify metrics for that power category?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I'll start by maybe stating the obvious, which is that health equity is deeply embedded in the work that we do at County Health Rankings and Roadmaps. And so I think one of the strengths of this new model is that it is really a tool to help explain why health inequities exist. So as you use the new model, as you explore measures, there'll be an interactive version of this on our website with the release on March 19th. Anytime you click on a concept to learn a little bit more, health equity will be deeply embedded in how we're talking about and framing the issues that shape health. So that's the first note. Although you don't see health equity language on the model itself, this model is designed to be used to help describe what produces health and what produces health inequities. On power, I'll note that in the interactive version of the model that will be available on the website on March 19th, you'll be able to click on power and learn more about the definition, how it's connected, and how it's connected to health. In 2025, there will be no measures of power that are associated with the model for 2025.
Okay, thank you. Very, very good information, helpful. So I'll stay with you, Michael, because some also picked up on the word culture in speaking about the model, the new model, and wondered, will culture be defined or qualified in the new model of health? There's just a little bit of concern that use of that term might be stigmatizing, or people might immediately only think about racial ethnic groups that are less healthy when seeing that term.
Yep, that's another great question, and I'll maybe start with a similar answer to what I just offered. So for 2025, there will be no measures of anything in that purple and orange, so societal rules and power, which includes worldviews, culture, and norm. What there will be is that if you click on that construct of worldviews, cultures, and norm, a definition and a summary of the literature describing its connection to health. So we have defined these constructs pretty broadly, and you'll see that in the version of the model that's released next week.
That'll be really
but you're
helpful.
correct that that really narrow definition of culture was not the intent.
Yes. Helpful. One more question for you, Michael, and then I'll go to Jess. But we might rope back to you. And this question is related to some of the harder news that you shared with all of us. And folks are wondering, if more funding's not available to support some of the great work that has already happened, will the website, the data, things related to CHR&R still be available?
Yeah, this is a really important question. We are in the very early stages of understanding what's next. So the most important thing that you all can do to support us and to inform next steps is to take the survey that we put in the chat to help us understand how you use the resources. In that survey, there's a question if we can follow up with you to learn about what steps we can take to archive the resources that we have available. What's true as of today is that our funding ends by December of 2026, and a website requires resources to maintain. So we're looking at other ways to make sure that the resources that we've made available for the past 15 years are still accessible. But the best way that you can help inform what that looks like is to complete that survey.
Absolutely.
And I can promise you that we will be in touch as we make decisions about what that archival process looks like if alternative funding isn't identified.
Everybody will appreciate that. All right, I'm going to give Michael a little bit of a break and move to Jess. So, Jess, as you can imagine, people are really excited about the 6 new measures. So, lots of questions there. I will start with this one I found really interesting. Someone really picked up on the functional disability, the new measure, and wondered why it was defined so more specifically around functional disability rather than a broader assessment of disability.
Yeah, so that was a data related decision. It was a practical decision about the data that was available to us. So we used data from the behavioral risk factor surveillance system. So there was survey questions around functional disabilities, and that's where that came from. And once the release goes live, we'll have a full measure page where people can read about the measure and the methods that we used and some of the literature behind it.
Wonderful. That'll be helpful. Okay, this question just is about sources and methodology. Someone really picked up on the measures of loneliness, lack of social and emotional support, as well as access to libraries and access to parks. And just curious, what methodology was applied to create measures like access to libraries and access to parks, and what are the sources of some of those newer measures? And I know they'll be on. You just said they'll be on the page, but if there's just some quick clues you can give to folks on those specific measures, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the feelings of loneliness and the lack of social and emotional support also come from the behavioral risk factor surveillance system. So those are based on survey questions from that survey. The access to libraries measure comes from the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Mm.
They have a survey that examines information about libraries, so that's where that data came from. And for the methodology related to that measure, I would encourage people to go to the measure page. I don't want to try to repeat it quickly off the
No,
top of my head.
yes,
You can
yes.
also use contact us form anytime you have additional questions, but all of that methodology will be detailed on the website. And then for access to parks, that is one that I worked on more directly. We use a data source from ArcGIS Online called USA Parks that has locations of like local, regional, state, and national parks. And then we pulled population data from the Census Bureau. And that one is essentially a proximity analysis. So we found the population that's within a half mile of parks. And again, that'll have a measure page too that details the full rationale and the methods behind the measure.
Great. Thanks for just being willing to give folks a preview of what they might find when they look at the methodologies. All right. So a lot of folks' ears perked up when you mentioned peers based on rurality. Rurality?
Yeah,
Rurality.
rurality.
And wondered about other factors that inform your peer definition.
So in the Compare Counties tool, right now, you can compare your county to other counties, you can compare to state and national averages, and you can compare to that rurality value, which is a value that captures an average of all counties that have a similar rurality. And again, that's based on proximity to metropolitan areas. Um, and of course, one other factor, or similar population size and proximity to metropolitan areas. We used to have another peer definition, but that's not in the tool anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, to once the data release goes live, or actually this is already live. The similar rurality function is already live because we
Oh,
updated that
perfect.
last year. So you can go to the Compare Counties page and take a look at all those options. And if there are additional questions, again, please use the contact us form because we'd be happy to answer more detailed questions about it.
Wonderful. One more question for Jess, and then I'm going to go to Naya. So this question was couched by someone based in Connecticut, but maybe you can answer, as I think it might apply no matter what county or area you're from. But for Connecticut, did you calculate the old Connecticut counties, or did you use the new Connecticut planning regions, or neither?
So the answer is both. There was data available for for some of our data sources just for the old counties, and then for many of our data sources, there was data available for the new planning regions. So we will have 2 sets of Connecticut snapshots on the website for this release, and there will be a footnote that links to a specific page explaining all of that, because I know it can be a lot to keep track of with the so many counties changing boundaries. And we did calculate the health groups based on data for the planning regions. So there will be a page explaining that and going into detail about which measures are available for either the old Connecticut counties or the new planning
Oh,
regions.
that's great. Wonderful. Your team thinks of everything. All right. So I'm going to give just a bit of a break and go to Nea. So folks are loving Evie, Evie?
Heavy.
Evie. And one very specific question, is Evie able to provide or cite references in 7th edition APA? What are the pros of having an AI feature on the website?
Yeah, so the first part of that question, the citations, Evie won't be able to generate specific citations, but Evie will be able to share links to the strategies that we have in our database, and we include citations for all of our strategies. So you'll be able to click through the strategies that are linked and then scroll down and find the citations. And then the second part of your question, Joanne, we're hoping that this AI feature will help our users, navigate our extensive database, right? Like I mentioned before, we have over 400 strategies, and it takes time to look through all of that, right? So we're hoping that this tool will help our users navigate all the strategies and maybe find some strategies that they hadn't thought of that that are relevant to their needs.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go. I think this question is for you, Michael, because folks always want to know, when are we going to get the data? When are we going to have access to the model? And they want to get a little bit more specific than today. Someone asked, is there a certain time by which you plan to make the data available? And then also about embargoed data and resources. Is that part of your process?
Yeah, so the data release is on March 19th, and the website will be updated by 12:01 a.m. on March 19th. So for folks that are really eager, if you were to visit countyhealthrankings.org at 12:01 a.m. on March 19th, you will see the updated data and all of the resources that we shared today, including the model, including EVI, et cetera.
Well, to get even more specific, is that Central or Eastern time?
Oh, you know what? It's probably Eastern. So
It is Eastern. I can confirm. It's Eastern.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, so folks will find it available on March 19th at 12:01 a.m. If folks have had access to embargoed data in the past, please be in touch with your state team.
Great. All right. And I think this question Erica may even be able to help with this, but folks are making the connection between the addition of power, things related to narratives in the new model. And so Narratives for Health was mentioned. When will the next Train the Facilitator trainings be offered?
Oh, that's a good question. We are actually have a running waiting list for people who want to participate in our next training. So I would encourage you to visit our Narratives for Health page. A link for that will be in the resource guide. Once we meet a certain threshold, we'll go ahead and schedule another date. But I've been told by my colleagues that that next one is actually getting full. So we will be getting ones, ramped up pretty soon. They just finished one last week. Soraya is
We
one of the
did. We sure
trainers.
did.
Yeah.
All
So thank
right.
you for your interest in that. Narrative is, Michael was talking about those written and unwritten rules. Narrative is one of those unwritten ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Erica, do you want to field another question or two or move on?
Let's move on. So, you know what? We're going to be nice and let you have a couple of minutes back in your day. So we'll move on. But thank you so much. You guys had some great questions. And I want to tell you, I've been at CHRNR for 10 years. and the love that you've been sharing with us in the chat is just, it warms my heart. So all of us here on the production team, before we joined you, we are like, we're not going to cry when we say this. We're not going to cry, but I will tell you, I was kind of glad I had my camera off when I started reading those chats. So thank you so much. You warm my heart, and it's just been the love of my life to work here. So there is one more survey that we're going to ask you to complete, and that's a survey regarding um, how you felt about this actual webinar. So Soraya is actually chatting that right now, and if you would actually complete that survey, because we do use that survey to help us improve our webinars. And please stay connected to us. We're not going anywhere just yet. So please stay connected. As the best way to learn about our resources and the new data, any new tools we may be putting forth in solidarity conversations, is to subscribe to our newsletter. But we also have a presence on social, Twitter, well, X, right? Facebook and LinkedIn. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your questions. Just thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And hey, if you are really wondering how you can help us, the best way you can help us is to fill out that survey, to share your experiences and your stories with us, and let us know what this impact of the loss of funding will have on your work and your program. That is the best way you can support us at the moment. So thank you for everything that you do to build health and equity in your communities. And we will see you next month when we talk about power.